Alright guys, what is going on? It is your boy Drinker here, and I'm coming back at you with another video. In today's video, we are actually going to be talking about Far Cry 6 and why it should have been a good game, but ultimately fell short. Now before the video begins, please be sure to leave a like, as well as subscribe, turn on post notifications, all of that good shit. It really does help the channel grow a ton. I'm sorry I haven't been posting as much lately. I've just been kind of at a loss for what to post here recently, as well as I did get sick for a while with COVID, which did it did just kind of knock me on my butt for a little bit. It really wasn't that serious, other than it just felt like I had a flu for a while, and so it was just annoying to deal with. Now, before we talk about Far Cry 6, I do briefly want to go over some of the other games in this series. The first couple of Far Cries were pretty good, and then you got to Far Cry 3, which is, widely considered kind of the best in the series, and personally I would say it's also the best in the series if I had to pick. And primarily it's because it did sort of set the tone for the future games. If you play any Far Cry game after 3, you can see that it was definitely influenced by 3. And I think the real reason Far Cry 3 was the best is it was more memorable, especially with Voss Montenegro, the main villain, who was played by Michael Mandow in a tremendous performance. And I think that's the biggest problem with games after. When you take, for example, Far Cry 4, it was still fun. However, do you remember anything about the actual game or the villains, anything like that? Do you actually remember, or do you just remember playing Far Cry 4 and having fun? Because that's where I'm at. When I play Far Cry 3, I immediately go to Voss. I immediately think of Voss when I think of Far Cry 3, but when I think of Far Cry 4, I don't really have any specific memories of the game. I just remember playing it and having a good time. And that's what happens a lot of times when developers try to recapture that magic in such a game. Like Far Cry 3, it was so good, they just kept trying to replicate that formula, and it was still working, the games were still good. However, it's just a copy, and we all know the copy is not as good as the original. So of course the games were slowly on a decline, but they were still fun. However, we got to Far Cry 5, and Far Cry 5 was a different animal. I actually had a lot of fun playing Far Cry 5. It was a well-made game with a lot to do, and it did start to introduce some new mechanics again to the series, which was also awesome. The main problem with Far Cry 5, though, it was very, very, very overtly political, and it would even make constant jabs at President Trump, which is weird because it really should have been separated from modern America, and then they were making jabs about modern America, and so it kind of blurred those lines, and they were just constantly going at President Trump, and it would ruin the story overall. The main story should have been compelling. It's actually about a religious cult leader, which, taking down a religious cult leader, you can imagine would be a pretty interesting thing. However, when they make it constantly overtly political and blur the lines between fiction and reality, that's where it becomes kind of nonsensical. In the game, Far Cry 5, it even ends with the religious cult leader being right and nukes dropping and kind of ending the world, so to speak. And that's what they were trying to say Trump would do, would be to get everyone in a war and drop nukes and cost endless lives. And of course, they were completely wrong about Trump. He actually didn't start any new wars at all, which is ironic because, of course, we have Joe Biden in office now, and it looks like we're probably going to get in World War III. Just saying. And so Far Cry 5, it was fun, it had its moments, but ultimately, again, it was just kind of underwhelming. It wasn't great, it was just okay. Now, Far Cry 6, of course, it's been out a little while, and I played it when it first came out. I had it right away. However, I wasn't really that impressed after playing the game a couple hours. I thought the island scenery was pretty cool. I thought it was a pretty setting with the, it's a South American island. It's got hot Latin music playing the whole time. I thought it was kind of a vibe, the scenery and the music, things like that. But it just kind of fell flat for me. So I put it away for a little bit. But I decided to play it more thoroughly here recently, give it another chance, but also try to evaluate the game now that that sort of initial hype has gone away. Because I find that myself, and not just myself, but a lot of people, they play a game, And when they're initially hyped for it, it skews their perspective on the game, and oftentimes they overrate a game just because of that initial hype. And the game, it definitely has a lot of promise. It's a huge, massive game, massive map. It has some badass weapons, including some special weapons that have like dope skins, planes, helicopters, custom vehicles, hidden Easter eggs, hidden collectibles, all sorts of things like that. It even has animal companions that follow you around. They are pretty useless, like, let's be real. I generally can kill everyone before the animal can even get there. There's even a rocket backpack like you're fucking Boba Fett. But that's the thing, there's so much in the game, it can kind of be a little overwhelming. Especially when you look at the scope of the map. And if you're someone who really likes to, play a game thoroughly and complete it and do everything, I could see how this game would just be a fucking nightmare for that. And you can even play as both the guy or female character, and they're both fully dialogued, which is awesome that the developers went ahead and did that. There's even a Rambo mission and a Danny freaking Trejo mission that are pretty fun as well. And they just add to the sort of promise that the game has. Ultimately, though, the game, it does fall short. The story, it should be compelling. After all, there's a lot of moral implications. For example, the island, it grows a specific strain of tobacco where they can use the chemicals in tobacco to cure cancer. However, the island's run by an evil dictator who uses slave labor, and it gives that interesting moral quandary, like, do we want to cure cancer, or, do we want to free these slaves? It's definitely an interesting dichotomy. Like I said, it does end up falling short, and it's mostly because it's a woke mess, and it's just full of busy work, which a lot of Ubisoft games do have a lot of busy work in them, but this one seems to even have more. It seems like it just kind of continually goes, and you just do busy work, busy work, busy work, busy work, and then you eventually get blessed with an actual story cutscene. And there's even a lot of inconsistencies in the game that kind of frustrate me, especially for a modern game. For example, there's a scene where the main character, Danny's being tortured, he's tied up, they're ripping his teeth out, and they decide to let him go. And he gets cut down by Anton, the main villain, but Anton throws a grenade in the room. Now, Danny does happen to live from the grenade. However, when the cutscene ends, you have all of your weapons again. And it's like, where did I pull them from? Did I literally pull these out of my asshole? Obviously, they're not going to be torturing him with all of his weapons on him somehow. And just little inconsistencies, like make me go to a box and pick them up first. At least pretend to care. Stuff like that is just kind of annoying, especially in a modern game. But as I said before, despite those little annoying things, the biggest problem is just how freaking woke the game is. It's constantly pushing a huge feminism agenda. All of the different faction leaders all seem to be women, and it's not just women. They're all like badass, tough women who have all the same characteristics as men. However, they just happen to be females who, of course, are all kind of androgynous for the most part and not sexualized at all in any way, shape, or form, and they just end up feeling identical to any male counterparts, and it's ultimately just an effort to pander, of course, and it's just constantly being pushed in your face, this overt feminism. And in fact, if you play as a female character, it feels like there's no men in the game at all. If you play as the guy, at least you're kind of the main character, and there's a guy in the story, but for the most part, it feels like there's only a handful of guys in the game, and most of them are complete whiny baby back bitches. The game also promotes an overt LGBT agenda. There's a random trans individual in the game, and it literally doesn't matter to the story at all. It was just there to virtue signal. It doesn't help the plot at all. It's just to say, hey, here's a trans person in our video game. And I wouldn't mind having someone who's trans in a game, but at least make it serve the story. Otherwise, it's just so stupid and so pointless. It's like, why freaking bother? And especially when it's such a transparent attempt to virtue signal and just show how woke Ubisoft is. And that's just the start with the LGBT agenda. They keep pushing it because there's random sub-stories and side quests about lesbians and gays that, again, that they make no difference to the story at all. And honestly, they should have just focused on the primary plot points, the cancer cure with the dictator using slave labor, because that is a good plot, but they didn't focus on it at all. The next biggest problem with the game as well, going back to the characters and the feminism agenda and the LGBT agenda, all of the characters, for the most part, are not memorable at all. I just played the game, I don't remember who they are, to be completely honest. The only character that sticks in your head at all is Anton Castillo, and that's not because Anton's a particularly good character, it's because Giancarlo Esposito is a good actor. It's just because you go, hey, it's Gus from Breaking Bad. It has nothing to do with how good of a character Anton is. And it's sad because the game, it's targeted towards a woke audience, but that audience doesn't even play this game. So they just end up patronizing the actual players of the game. And I guess that means I took the biggest of L's because I just paid money for a game that ended up just patronizing me. Overall, though, I will say it is a functional game. You know, for the most part, it runs fine. There is some random stutters when there shouldn't be any random stutters here and there, but generally works fine and looks good, things like that. So it's not like it's completely broken or anything like that. The biggest problems with the game are all story related, all woke agenda related. If you have played the game, I would be very interested to hear what you guys thought of the game as well, so definitely comment down below, just telling me what you thought of the game. If you haven't played the game, I'm not going to tell you to buy it, I'm not going to tell you not to buy it. This video is just more so you can see what I thought of the game personally. I still, at times had fun. You can always have fun in a Far Cry game, just walking around, taking out bases full of dudes, stealth killing, sniping fools. You can always have fun doing stuff like that at the very least. Overall, though, personally, I'd probably rate the game about a 5 out of 10. And again, that's just because it's a functional game. It works fine typically. However, the story, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. I do think that is going to do it for me though, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Again, tell me what you thought of the game down below in the comments. Tell me what other types of videos that you do want to see from me in the future. I am going to definitely start uploading some more again on a more regular basis. Again, please subscribe, turn on post notifications. That way you do get alerted anytime I drop a new video. Be sure to follow my Twitch stream as well at Drinker Live. Follow my Twitter also, that way you get notified of everything because I do post just about everything on Twitter. And also I go in depth on some other opinions that I do have as well. And as always, guys, you guys have a good one. I am out of here. Peace.